Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Transparency is the New Green in Product Selection and Specification. Thrilled to have you attend today. This is the third in our series with ATrue and the second in our series featuring content from the 2017 Product Transparency Trend Report that will be available publicly next week. With me today is a special guest from ATrue, Liz Sofia, the VP of Marketing, and Liz, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Terry, and thank you all for attending today. I'm thrilled to be here. Terry is such a good friend to us. She's a friend to the AECO community and a huge advocate for the manufacturing community. Not only is she the founder and CEO of Sustainable Minds, but she's so humble. She's won so many awards on innovation. She's been recognized by Gartner and nominated as a World Economic Technology Pioneer. So not only am I pleased to be here and present the content with her, but I'm proud to be in partnership with Sustainable Minds. It's a really good venture for all of us and for all of you. Today, we have about 50 minutes of content. I know we're here for the hour, so we'll save some time for questions at the end. We will answer questions as they come up. If you will type them into the panel there, we will monitor those and do what we can to answer them. If your questions don't get answered today, we will follow up with you, and we will also make the slides from today's presentation available. As Terry mentioned early on, we are going to do a deep dive into the content. Earlier this year, we kicked off a series, a high level, going into the trend report. And today our focus is really on PCRs and EPDs, so product category rules and environmental product declarations. We will go through the trend report at a high level and then dive into methodology, results, and the state of product transparency. We'll go into the trends and totals with regard to environmental reporting and walk through the catalog. I know that Terry has a demo planned for you towards the end. We'll also talk about product group benchmarking and walk you through the variances around that. And I think that is all I have to say in terms of teeing it up. If you're not familiar with ATrue, we are formerly known as ARCOM, so you may know us from that. From our past. We are the exclusive developer of MasterSpec and a strategic partner of the AIA. We have a little over 60 folks on board who help with all different aspects of our business. And of course, we are tied deeply to MasterSpec as the exclusive developers. And if you haven't checked out our website or our content in a while, I would encourage you to do so. We went through a very extensive reimagination, rebrand back in November of 2017. And I think you'll find the new approach to products in the industry of interest. So with that, Terry, I think I will let you take it away.
Thanks, Liz. And as she mentioned, it's really great to be partnering with ATrue, and particularly in their reimagined brand and new mission, because it's with this partnership with ATrue that we can really see how we can continue to move transparency, product transparency, out of only the realm of people who have traditionally cared about green into the larger realm of people who design and build and own buildings. A little bit about Sustainable Minds. We're a software company, so like ATrue, we are a software company, and our focus has always been on helping manufacturers both design greener products, and since 2012, when LEED v4 was introduced, the focus is now on helping them also market those greener products. So in our roots, we have deep expertise in life cycle assessment. We became a program operator so that we could get our arms around creating standards or implementing standards that will help manufacturers design and market greener products. And what I bring to the table, my own background, is expertise in information design and cloud software design and delivery. What makes us a little bit unusual, if you think about all of the folks who are on the call today, we are unlike any other company in this space in that we are the only end-to-end product transparency solutions provider in the market today. We do everything, and we felt it was critical to be able to do everything because it's all one part. It's all one continuous improvement process. So knowing how to deeply understand and implement the standards, deliver these technical disclosure methods, lifecycle assessment, and material evaluation services, deliver the results in useful cloud-based tools, and also provide training, education, and the kind of support that will help manufacturers operationalize this work into the way they make products. So as a mission-based company, everything that we do is designed to propel our mission, which is to help manufacturers operationalize environmental performance into mainstream product development and manufacturing to drive revenue and growth through greener product innovation. So when you registered, we asked you a question, this one, just to kind of gauge where people were in their product transparency journey. Folks who actually answered this question as either, yes, all of these are challenges, or at least one is a challenge, means that you've already created some number of transparency disclosures for some number of your products. So you're well on your way. You're not laggards. You're well on your way. You're part of the group of manufacturers who have propelled the product transparency trend forward. And we're going to talk about how you participated in that work, and now clearly in this next phase of after just getting started, we're coming now to terms with how do we operationalize the use of product transparency into the way business is done to create preference for those brands and their products and get them specified and into buildings to actually build a high performance built environment. That's why the partnership with ATrue is really important to this operationalizing process. Together, we're focused on helping people get the specifications for these products and integrating into the specifications the language that will help specifiers to make sure that the products that they really want in the building not only get into the spec, but stay in the spec, and that product transparency investment and that language is worked into that spec to further differentiate your products. Together, we're going to continue to do educational webinars like this one so that, and our series in general, Transparency is the New Green, to showcase the manufacturers who actually are making higher performing products and can talk about what they're doing to improve. And then ultimately, because we're both software companies, to be able to integrate our products. We've already started in a simple way with Product Master Spec, co-branding and linking back and forth between the Transparency Catalog and Product Master Spec, and ultimately getting the products in the Transparency Catalog accessible from within Master Spec, which is used by the top 100 architecture firms in the Architectural Records top 300 list. And when that happens, we really do feel quite confident that we will influence the way products get selected and the way that dollars get spent. So we're going to do an overview of the upfront section of the trend report that we delivered on the last webinar. Many of you were not able to make it to that one, so we'll kind of give the upfront story, and then we'll focus on the environmental reporting section. We're not going to talk about the material ingredient reporting section today. That will be in a next webinar, and we'll keep you posted on when that's going to happen, but the content will be in the report. So like any technical report, our report starts out with the definitions and methodology section and then delivers the results. So if you're the kind of person that likes to read the executive summary and you're done, you're going to be in luck, because that's the way this report is written, and that's how I'm going to deliver this story to you today. So here's the definitions, and it is these definitions that actually drive, or initially drove, us to create the transparency catalog, because literally we wanted to catalog how many manufacturers were creating disclosures for how many of their products, so that there would be enough products with transparency information to specify to build higher performing buildings. So, our goal was to reward manufacturers for investing in product transparency, which technically means that they are conducting one or two types of technical studies and are disclosing the findings. So they're either doing environmental performance technical studies, also known as life cycle assessments, and the technical standard that governs that process is ISO 14025, environmental labels and declarations. And that particular standard includes the rules for how product category rules get created and the content that goes into a Type 3 environmental declaration. And I will often use the term Type 3 environmental declaration because EPD is a colloquialism. It's not actually the technical term used in the standard. And 14025 says a program operator can call their Type 3 environmental declarations anything they like. And you'll see moving forward, we called ours transparency reports. And for a good reason, we wanted to really indicate that there was something different about our Type 3 environmental declarations. And we'll show you what they look like today. And I'm also going to show you what's coming down the pike in this next phase of product transparency. Keeping in mind all the products listed in the catalog meet the eligibility requirements for one or more types of credits and criteria in one or more of the green building rating systems that reward building professionals for specifying their products. So by virtue of it being a transparency catalog, there's a massive filter on the creation of the catalog. It's just the manufacturers who've invested in product transparency and just their products with transparency disclosures. So the way we populate the catalog is, again, because we have expertise in life cycle assessment and material ingredient disclosures. We maintain an overview. We check every program operator in North America, their site every month, sometimes a little bit more frequently than that, to see if any new manufacturers have created EPDs, either product specific or industry wide. And we also monitor all of the material ingredient disclosure sites and add those manufacturers as well. We maintain these connections through knowledge and through persistence in monitoring what's happening in the industry. So here's the results. Of 35 active MasterFormat divisions, manufacturers in 24 of those divisions have created one or both types of disclosures. There are 1,225 EPDs in 19 of those divisions and 8,404 material ingredient disclosures in 24 divisions. And just as a reminder, the data collection period for the report was all of the disclosures that were valid, either created or valid, from January 1st to December 31st of 2017. So this is what it looks like. Here's the list of the MasterFormat divisions. You can see the number of EPDs and the number of material ingredient disclosures. You can see which MasterFormat divisions have the most activity. And it's useful to note that finishes has a lot of activity because there are so many sections in that division of products that touch customers. And so the material ingredient disclosure aspect of that has been very important. And the furnishings category has so much material ingredient reporting because BIFMA has done a great job of getting its members' products certified. So 3,900 of that 4,800 number represent BIFMA level certificates. All right, so what does that data tell us? And that's what we're going to dive into now. And we've put together a framework to be able to put our minds around this story and what is actually driving the product transparency trend forward. So here's the premise, that product transparency in the building products industry is a new technology. Not the science and the methods behind the technical reports and the process, those are well established. But using product transparency in product selection and in product marketing is the innovation. So back in 2012, when the USGBC announced LEED version 4 and said product transparency is now kind of a cornerstone concept, and saying, look, the single attribute ratings and certifications from LEED version 3 are still important and are still relevant. However, they only tell a slice of a story about a category. And additionally, many of those single attribute ratings and certifications are different in different categories. Some are consistent, like the percent of recycled content or distance shipped, that kind of thing. But otherwise, those category-specific attributes are specific to those products. And ultimately, if what we're trying to get to is the ability to measure and evaluate the impacts of an entire building, then things have to be measured and modeled in the same way. And so by introducing product transparency as a thing and pointing to the underlying technical methods to do it, what's happened is this standardization of scientific methods to be applied to all product categories, to be able to comprehensively measure all product categories in the same way across the product's life cycle, and or evaluating the potential risks and hazards of the materials used to those products, all in the same way across every category. So there's a theory called the diffusion of innovations, and this theory is pretty popular to describe the adoption of new technologies. And that's why we laid out the premise that product transparency is a new technology in use this way. And this diffusion of innovations theory says there are four main elements to diffuse the innovation. So it's the innovation itself. So we just talked about the technical methods and their application, the communications channels, a period of time, and a social system. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with the term, the tipping point. And so when all of these elements come to play over time, which is one of the elements, we see this adoption of the new technology. And so product transparency is a perfect technology to illustrate this theory. And this is what we show in the report, that all the elements are here. The social system, the innovation, the time, it's been 5 years, and most importantly, the communication channels. There are so many participants from the program operators like us, the material ingredient disclosure programs, all the NGOs like the Green Building Rating Systems and others, media, and all of the solution providers who have identified this opportunity. And that's Ecomedes, it's UL Spot, it's Mindful Materials, it's us, it's a handful of others. Everyone is contributing to floating everyone else's boat. And while manufacturers may be experiencing this as a lot of confusion and a lot of stuff coming at them. The good news is it is all pushing things in the right direction. And that's what happens in the early stages of innovation. There's a lot of sorting out that needs to take place. But what we're seeing for sure is that as an industry, we are arriving at the tipping point that product transparency is a real thing that is never going away and is only going to achieve the purpose that it was set out to achieve, which is to change the way building product manufacturers make products and the way that buildings get built, ultimately to reduce impacts from the built environment on the natural environment and human health. Excuse me. So to show you this trend, we're going to start by showing you what the Transparency Catalog looked like when it went live in 2016. We launched it at Greenbuild. And at that time, there were 350 brands who had done something, some EPD, some type of material ingredient disclosure. Some had already done a lot, some had only done one thing. But at that time, we felt that there was enough activity to, literally scrape together the beginning of this catalog and start to say, look, product transparency is a thing, and here's a whole bunch of manufacturers who are already doing something. A scant 14 months later, at the end of 2017, we had 961 brands and industry organizations in the catalog, 516 of whom had done environmental performance reporting only, 405 had done material ingredient reporting only, and 93 had done both environmental and material ingredient reporting. Now, what we also did in 2017 was we went and looked at all of the industry organizations and all of the manufacturers in those organizations who had participated in creating industry-wide EPDs. And so we added 313 manufacturers and industry organizations who had current industry-wide EPDs. But in addition to that, 298 new manufacturers created product-specific EPDs and or material disclosures, which represented an 85% increase in the number of brands investing in product transparency in 14 months. And I'm talking about just the addition of these, not the addition of these. The 85% represents the increase over the 350 that we'd started with. So I think we've gotten through the phase of early adoption, people getting started, people using the technical programs that were out there, that were evolving, that were coming to market. And this next phase of product transparency is really going to be about what transparency is meant to be about, which is performance. So high performance is how the industry defines successful buildings today. Environmental performance and material health are now rolled up under that term, high performance. And so by definition, they are performance criteria that are used both in product manufacture and now in product selection. So if you look at what's the primary intent for doing a life cycle assessment or doing a material ingredient disclosure, it is for a manufacturer to be able to understand where in the life cycle the impacts are being created by their products. And again, what ingredients in those products are posing potential hazard and risk considerations. And when they have that information, they can change the way they're doing things. They can improve, they can innovate. And when they do that, they can tell meaningful stories in the marketplace about how their products are higher performing and why they're higher performing. They can connect those dots between knowledge, action, and now integrating that information into their product marketing to what we say to create a credibly greener brand and create preference for that brand and value it as a result. So, why is performance important now? We're going to hit on this again and again, that everybody on this call knows that the built environment creates considerable impact on the natural environment and human health, and it's only increasing. And actual performance matters now. Simply having a disclosure, simply checking a box, does not mean that the product itself has better or worse performance than some other product. And so, people like to say, you can't manage what you don't measure. We have to be able to measure in a way that people can take the information and make informed and managed decisions. So what's happening now is manufacturers are really seeing that there's been this kind of first phase of adoption. We're coming to this tipping point, and those manufacturers who may have held back, watching what's happening in the market, are now saying, all right, we need to get going. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know if we're losing business. We know we're making better products. We need to be telling that story. And further, while the architecture community did a great job of kickstarting the demand for product transparency with that letter writing campaign, there's enough forward motion and enough now AEC firms establishing real policies regarding product selection that informs the way they design buildings and specify products. And then the last, surefire social system reason that product transparency is not going away is the millennial generation. Millennials were the first generation born with devices in their hands. They have relied on data to be able to make decisions. In fact, there's skepticism on their part of providers who are not transparent, that they must be hiding something because they're not transparent. And so we've got some great data in the report supporting this stat. But by 2025, the millennial share of the workforce will be at 75%. And that demand for data is really going to be firmly entrenched by that point. It's got to be useful, and it's got to be actionable, and everybody's got to be providing it. So with everything that we do know from this data that we've collected, here's the most important thing that we don't know, which is kind of the most important thing, which is that we don't know, and the disclosures can't tell us, how many products there are in the marketplace today with transparency disclosures. Because the number of products or product groups or even product categories is not well documented in a disclosure. That's kind of not its purpose. So we tried to do kind of a quick back of envelope. Well, how many products might there be if we use the knowns to calculate this model? So we used a quick back of envelope calculation. We said, we know there are 961 brands, 1,225 EPDs, 8,400 material ingredients, so that's 9,629 disclosures. Each disclosure could represent, at least it's a one-to-one correlation. But if we average it out, maybe each disclosure represents 10, 50, 100 products. So if you look at that really broad range, the estimated number of products with transparency disclosures that are in the market today are at least 9,629, and it could be as high as almost 1 million. But there's no way of knowing, and there's really no way for manufacturers to easily help their sales reps, their distributors, their channel partners, and their customers find all their products with transparency information other than the Sustainable Minds Transparency Catalog. And that's because we understood from the get-go that disclosures themselves don't provide this information And the fact is that people aren't looking for disclosures. AECs aren't looking for disclosures. They're looking for products with disclosures. So here's a quick snapshot of the Transparency Catalog listing. This is Owens Corning. And you can see at the core of the listing is this product table, which in a glance organizes the manufacturer's products by CSI MasterFormat division and section. And then we append the manufacturer's brand name, whether it's their family name, their category name, that individual product name, to the MasterFormat division name so that it can be identified either way. And then within each section, a user can find each of the products that they have and all of the corollary disclosures that they have for that product. Clicking on any of these links takes the user to the product page of the manufacturer's website, and these other links take the user to the disclosures that correlate to that product. And you can see a little bit of information about that disclosure and its current expiration dates. Now, what's important to know is that here's in this example, there's very well likely more than 100 products in the Owens Corning listing. And in fact, one of the listings in the catalog that has the most products is the Tarkett listing that has over 800 products all in one page, all organized by MasterFormat division and by brand and by product type. But the number of disclosures that sits behind, or that's actually driving the number of products that gets displayed, is not a big number. In many instances, 100 products could have one EPD, or two EPDs, or three HPDs and a declare label. Yet there's hundreds of products here in the listing correlated to the disclosure that it represents. So a little bit about the Transparency Catalog. Again, because R&D is kind of at the core of what we do, the Transparency Catalog has been developed from the get-go to be an educational marketing and customer service solution. It's not a product database. We say that because we get thrown into the product database category because technically, yes, there's a product database that sits behind that interface, but it's a solution designed to solve a whole bunch of challenges that both manufacturers and AECs are faced with today. And our primary consideration is first and foremost to focus on the brands. This is all about rewarding the brands, getting the brands known, and also making it possible for anybody coming to the catalog, again, in a glance, to see, oh my gosh, there are tons of manufacturers who already have invested in product transparency. One of the user experience things that bugs me as a user is when you show up at a website, which is a database, and what you get on that front page is a search input field, and you're expected to start to search. You really have no sense of what's behind that search field, what's in there, how much stuff is there. And so that's why the catalog is designed to look like this, that you can browse and see every brand, and hopefully you will browse and you will click around. Well, the good news is that our data, our stats show us that an average visitor, an average visit, stays at the catalog for over 6 minutes, which is a pretty long time for each visit, and spends between 2 and 3.5 minutes on every listing. That is still a very long time that people are actually coming and spending and learning. Now, we will be implementing filtering, that search capability, later on this year. And you're going to see it's going to be a pretty interesting user experience in the way that the results will get displayed in priority of the amount of content the manufacturer has made available to explain their products. We'll be demoing that in the coming months. But today, the focus is on the brands. And so here's what a standard listing looks like. It's simple. It's designed to be just simple. And everything is all in one place. The logo that links to the website, some introductory content about the manufacturer, their commitment to transparency, contact information, links, phone numbers, whatever the manufacturer wants, a representative image, and at the core is this table, again, that lists all the products and all the disclosures, the opportunity for some more text that either can talk about the additional certifications and ratings that the manufacturer has achieved for products in various categories, and also as part of the annual subscription for the listing is the manufacturer adds their own Google Analytics tracking code to this page, so the manufacturer can be monitoring in real time who's coming to the page, what they're clicking on, what they're looking at. It's just all part of the annual subscription. It's not extra because why would it be? What's the use of having a catalog where you're sending both your salespeople and the AECs without being able to monitor the results? And then we've built in, which I'll demo later, some really simple customer service and social media tools that make it super simple to send people product information, to bring them right back here to get all the product information with disclosures and be able to promote on social media. This is brand new. Nobody has ever seen this. This audience is the first to see this. We are introducing standard listings for industry groups who have done industry-wide EPDs. What this standard listing for industry groups does is it gives them the credit, as well as the participating manufacturers, the credit for having gone ahead and created industry-wide EPDs and making those industry-wide EPDs available there, and then listing all of the manufacturers who participated in these industry-wide EPDs. And then these links actually go to their listings in the Transparency Catalog so that you can find all of their product-specific disclosures along with all of their products. And so this opportunity for an industry group who we have an affiliate relationship with them, they actually can offer the Transparency Catalog listings to their members at a discounted price as a benefit of membership and to further promote a comprehensive commitment to product transparency and to reward those manufacturers again and the industry group for investing in creating those industry-wide EPDs. Our featured brands are really at the core of where we see the Transparency Catalog going in the future, because it's not just about providing lists of products and ultimately lists of links. It's about enabling the manufacturers to integrate their sustainability efforts and their stories into one integrated, simple to understand, easy to use place. And their websites oftentimes don't allow them to do that because of how siloed websites tend to be. And disclosures, by definition, are not designed to be able to include explanation and improvement stories because they're disclosures. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about featured brands when I demo the catalog at the end. This is also new. This is live. I'll show you a little bit of it. This is a pilot that we built with and for Knauf Insulation, which is our project builder, configurator, and library, to show how product transparency can really be the front end, can be the entrance into a manufacturer's product portfolio be able to integrate that product transparency with product marketing, get the transparency reports, the material health overviews that tell those improvement stories, and then enable an AEC to start a project, a hospital, a school, whatever they're working on, able to start a project, select products from the manufacturer, specify those products, so configure those products specific to the project, and then be able to get specification help, save that project and those products, be able to have all the disclosures in one place to be able to submit for project certification, to share with others, and best yet, if somebody needs specification help, they can reach out to the manufacturer in that selection and specification process. If that user is a facility manager, a contractor, somebody who can actually make a purchase decision, they can request a quote. And when they request that quote, all of the products that they've selected and all the configuration and all the notation gets sent with it to the manufacturer. And it's the choice of how the manufacturer receives that inbound, whether it's to their Salesforce instance or whether it's to a person. And then it gets distributed to the appropriate place to get acted on. But what's happening here is we're, again, literally creating the top of the funnel or the interface into the manufacturer's product portfolio through the product transparency lens. And by the time that inquiry gets to a customer service or a sales rep, that person is well into that selection or specification cycle. So any sales rep on the manufacturer side is not dealing with a cold lead or a cool lead. They're dealing with a lead who's already in process, which means that there should be a shorter cycle to delivering that service and ultimately potentially closing that deal. So to wrap up this section about the catalog, it is uniquely designed to deliver value to both constituencies, manufacturers to help save time and money in marketing and sales and training and support, improve the effectiveness of people's efforts, and be able to deliver a measurable ROI on your transparency investments. And for building professionals to find all the brands in one place, understand what those disclosures mean and how to use them to earn credits in the rating systems, learn what a manufacturer is doing to improve, be able to share feedback with manufacturers, and ultimately reward manufacturers by investing, by selecting their products. And if all of this happens, we will drive change by creating preference through education, and ultimately that education drives behavior change. Now, with every manufacturer we work with, we use this value proposition and ROI framework to help the manufacturer identify how do they measure value, or what value propositions resonate in the organization at this time. How would you measure it? Is it going to be through cost reduction or value creation? And then being able to prioritize which of those value propositions and ROI calculations are really going to make sense in terms of continuing to inform that investment in product transparency and determining how to make it pay off. So back at Greenbuild in 2017, the AIA, with the support of ATrue, put together a session where they convened product manufacturers, technology solution providers like us, and some other interested parties to really discuss, and AECs obviously, to discuss the most urgent challenges facing product transparency in the building products industry. And these were the top 4 things that came out of that session in order of importance. The need for product transparency education across the industry, the standardization of technical guidelines and the results and the delivery of those results, the ease of finding products with credible transparency information there was a discussion that there was the AECs perceived that there were not enough manufacturers who were investing in product transparency, which we know is not the case. There's plenty of manufacturers. And the fourth was the challenge for manufacturers to demonstrate an ROI, because if AECs are not going to specify these products that manufacturers have invested all that time, all that money, all that risk in creating, communicating these disclosures, and they're going to stop doing it. But we know that that's actually not going to happen. It's not going to stop. And so we really need to take a pencil to, sharp pencil to what value propositions matter the most and how you're going to measure that return on investment. So we were pretty happy, and I'm happy to be able to tell you that Sustainable Minds has been working on each of those 4 top priority issues for quite some time, which is why the Transparency Catalog is an educational platform. We became a program operator so that we could standardize the technical guidelines and the way that those results get delivered. The catalog is, again, designed to be able to find all the brands and all the products with transparency information and to deliver an ROI. So the deep dive on the environmental reporting, I'm going to just focus on 2 parts today because there's a lot of content in the report. One is just to give you the high-level results, but the other is to talk about the importance of benchmarking and the new guidance that Sustainable Minds put together to make that possible. So about 2 years ago, Sustainable Minds put together the North American PCR Catalog. There was no place anywhere that just listed all of the PCRs that had already been created by any program operator in North America. This is a Google Doc. It's freely available. You don't have to log in. If you just Google North American PCR Catalog or go to our website or go to the Program Operator Consortium website, you can find it. It's updated every month. And you can see how many PCRs are current. And so the total statistic for how much environmental reporting had happened by 2017 looks like this: 68 PCRs, 19 in 19 divisions, creating the number we'd already seen before, 1,225 EPDs. And so this table simply shows the number of PCRs to the number of EPDs and the number of manufacturers participating in each division. And there's some interesting things you can glean right away. Again, finishes and concrete being the top producers, if you will, no pun intended. And you can see that some of these categories have more EPDs with fewer manufacturers. And it's just an indicator of, in some divisions, there's a few who are doing a lot, and there's in other divisions, there's a lot that are also doing a lot or a little. But here's some of the challenges about this data and what we're addressing moving forward, which is that most PCRs do not include MasterFormat designations. More recently, in the last year to 2, they are starting to be included, but prior to that, no. And PCRs are valid for 5 years. So, and the traditional method for creating PCRs, and this has been one of the challenges early on, which is why LEAD version 4 didn't take effect when it was originally planned to, which is that PCRs are expensive, they take a long time, it's a complicated process. And because of that, many PCRs were created to cover many more than one division or many more than one section, but even some included multiple divisions, which means that the rules for doing LCA and then the rules for what gets included in the Type 3 environmental declaration have to be pretty broad to be relevant for all of those product groups, which means that ultimately the data in the LCA and the data in the reports are not really great for helping to make a performance-based decision. What we've had to do so that we could count is we look at each PCR and determine which MasterFormat division seems to be the most prominent, and then we assign the PCR to that category. But here's where we get into the industry-wide EPD story, and what I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking about is that there are 80 industry-wide EPDs, again, valid or had been created in the 2017 time period. So a lot fewer than product-specific. But those 80 industry-wide EPDs represent hundreds of manufacturers. And a lot of those industry groups who led the creation of those industry-wide EPDs have ultimately not felt that those industry-wide EPDs have served the purpose that they had hoped, largely because the industry-wide EPD was valued at half a product in lead version 4 rather than a full product for product specific. And while I understand, yes, there is more disclosure, more effort, more data in a product specific EPD, a lot of those manufacturers who participated in the industry-wide EPD, which was organized as a service of that industry group, which is what industry groups do, they provide service to their members, they did it because many of their members are small and don't have the resources or the time or the money to do their own product-specific EPDs. But overall, I think, and what we've heard is that there's been some disappointment about the uptake and the use of industry-wide EPDs. Now, on a side note, it was good to see the new lead version 4.1 announced 2 days ago in the new operations and maintenance credits. There is a credit for purchasing and installing products with transparency disclosures, and product-specific and EPDs and industry-wide EPDs are valued the same as one product. So that was really good to see. So Sustainable Minds, we became a program operator 4 years ago, again, so that we could address this standardization of technical standards, streamline the process, make it easier, more time efficient, more cost efficient, certainly, and to produce results that would help people make performance-based decisions. In our rules about what goes into the Type 3 environmental declaration, we are very specific about just life cycle assessment information that's going to help people make better informed decisions. Our transparency report, so it's our brand of Type 3 environmental declaration, is 3 pages. It's in the cloud. It includes interpretation and what the manufacturer is doing to improve. Everything somebody would need to make a purchase decision or a selection decision is on page 1, including links to the specification documents. Our Part B is at the product group level. A product group is defined as products that deliver the same functional performance and therefore would be considered for the same specification. So now the LCA can be done at the product group level, where rules for how to do the LCA and ultimately get us towards comparability get to happen. And now this new benchmarking guidance that we created at the end of last year and put out is an addendum to the Part B that contains all the additional rules needed for an industry group or a group of manufacturers to do the additional rules to create an industry-wide EPD that can serve as a product group benchmark to which manufacturers will then be able to compare their product-specific EPD results. So this suite of tools now includes a Part A, a Part B, and the benchmarking addendum. easy to implement, streamlined, designed for results. And the reason that manufacturers and their industry groups should consider getting started on creating product group benchmarks is now there's actually the opportunity to do it so that it really does help the industry and the manufacturers and gives the AECs ultimately what they've been looking for is a way to use that information to make comparative decisions. So the guidance is very comprehensive. It's process guidance, so how the industry group organizes, data set requirements, how to create rules, retroactive participation, so things aren't cast in stone forever. We'll be adding to the PCR catalog when the time comes, a category for benchmarking addendums, so manufacturers and AECs know that there are category benchmarks in process. But the most important piece, and this is also new, is the ability for an industry group to create a transparency report for their industry-wide EPD to explain how the benchmark was created, all of the guidance about long-term goals, why these 6 or 7 categories were selected, the impact categories. And there's also now a format for a comparative transparency report. So when there's a product group benchmark and a manufacturer does a product-specific transparency report, they'll be able to show their impact category results as a variable against the benchmark results. And importantly, and this is all part of the guidance, it's not just about providing the data, it's explaining what it means. So the requirements are that they need to explain how they got performance, how performance is better in 2 of those 6 or 7 categories, and how performance is not better or not improved in others. And here's guidance to explain, again, what does this comparison mean? Talk about what they're doing to improve. And again, the reason to do industry-wide EPDs now that serve as benchmarks is because if we don't measure what matters, we will never get to that point on the horizon where we've mitigated those impacts by 2030 or 2050. We've got to start now. And every PCR that gets created and every new EPD that gets created should be thinking about that performance criteria and how each industry group and manufacturer can contribute to the codification and the goal setting, and then the comparative information that allows people to make decisions based on performance. We're practically at the top of our time, and let's just move to the questions. Liz, what have you got?
Yeah, sure. So we actually have close to 10 questions, so I know we won't be able to address all of them. I'll go back to the beginning. I know you touched on some of this, but it was regarding LCAs and how can an LCA give information around health and the well-being of a product, or more specifically, how it impacts it, when an EPD isn't very easy to understand for architects and PCRs are not globally harmonized yet.
So that question was about how an LCA can report on the material health of products?
Correct. And how it impacts it.
So the reason that material ingredient disclosures were added to the lead criteria is because life cycle assessment doesn't do a great job of telling a health story. Although human health is one of the impact categories, doing the analysis of the materials takes a deeper look at what's in the product and why. So that's why the manufacturer has the opportunity to do both types of disclosures. That's why in our transparency products, what I'm clicking through quickly, is a transparency report where it includes both the life cycle impacts with an explanation of what these mean and what the manufacturer is doing to improve. And the user can also toggle to get their material health story and see the results of the disclosures that the manufacturer has created for that. And again, to learn about what does that mean? How did they get this level, in this case, this declare label? And what are they doing to improve, and what's their commitment going forward?
Okay, and so Terry, because we're at the top of the hour, I think what we'll do, we have all the questions captured, so we will reach out to you within the next 24, 48 hours with specific answers to your questions. So thank you so much for attending. As I mentioned, we will have copies of the slides and make this information available in the coming days.
I should also mention this has been recorded, and we will also make the recording available to you as well. So thank you, Liz, and thanks everyone for hanging out till the end, and we'll absolutely follow up with you, and we wish you a great day.